The final episode of Stranger Things has officially arrived, and there's a lot to digest. The finale throws several major revelations at us all at once, from the return of the Mind Flayer to a character death that felt strangely underwhelming, and even the possibility of another death depending on how you interpret the ending. On top of that, the episode closes with a nearly 45-minute epilogue that arguably could have been much shorter. The biggest question coming out of the finale revolves around the story Mike tells at the end. What did it really mean? To answer that, we need to break down the most important moments and unanswered questions surrounding the conclusion. When it comes to Vecna's death and his connection to the Mind Flayer, the finale finally explains why he was unable to enter the cave earlier. The Mind Flayer was actively restraining him. Vecna forces himself back into the memory of his first exposure to the Mind Flayer, revealing how deeply that darkness had rooted itself within him. Unfortunately, this moment also reinforced my biggest concern. Henry's storyline ultimately felt more like promotion for the first Shadow stage play rather than meaningful character development. While Henry does regain that chilling, menacing presence from Season 4, Will, still connected to him through the hive mind, attempts to convince him that he too was merely a vessel. Henry rejects this idea, claiming the Mind Flayer needed him. I don't believe that's true. Instead, it highlights Henry's mental weakness. The scientists warned him to resist the Mind Flayer because it would consume not just him, but everything. This leads to the reveal that Vecna's lair is actually the dormant shell of the Mind Flayer itself. Once awakened, the final battle unfolds inside the abyss. Vecna is physically connected beneath the Mind Flayer's core. As Eleven confronts him directly, with Will interfering through the hive mind to protect her, Vecna is ultimately impaled within the heart of the Mind Flayer. Personally, I found this battle disappointing. Every major confrontation involving Vecna in Season 4 felt far more intense and threatening. He was defeated too quickly, and the Mind Flayer, with its long-awaited return, was also taken out with surprising ease. The Mind Flayer worked best as a looming, shadowy force rather than a physical monster. While its design was intimidating, it never truly felt dangerous. At no point did it seem close to actually killing any of the main characters. Joyce ultimately delivers the final blow to Vecna, telling him he chose the wrong family. While visually powerful, I'm not convinced Joyce needed this moment. She played a relatively small role in the finale, yet received one of the biggest kills in the entire series, which felt unearned. One of the most talked about questions after the finale is whether Eleven actually died. The show strongly leads us to believe that she did, only for the Duffer Brothers to pull back at the last second and leave the answer open to interpretation. After the group succeeds in defeating both Vecna and the Mind Flayer, revealed to be connected through the hive mind, it's explained that the Mind Flayer didn't simply use Henry as a vessel, but actually depended on him. With that connection broken, the group escapes the abyss and triggers the exotic matter bomb, beginning the destruction of the Upside Down. As everyone returns to the right side up, Eleven remains behind in the Upside Down, standing near the gateway. She hesitates to cross over, understanding, as Carly previously warned, that there would always be people like Dr. Brenner and Dr. K who would be willing to hurt her friends just to get to her and create more children like her. Because of this realization, Eleven chooses to stay behind as the Upside Down collapses, making it seem as though she sacrifices herself permanently. However, in the final moments of the episode, set 18 months later, Mike tells a different version of events during a Dungeons & Dragons game. In this story, the mage, clearly representing Eleven, deceives everyone using Carly's powers, making it appear as though she was destroyed along with the Upside Down. In reality, according to Mike's version, Carly created an illusion, allowing Eleven to escape and live peacefully somewhere far away. This story connects directly to Hopper's earlier speech about two paths Mike could follow, one where he blames himself for Eleven's death, and another where he accepts her choice and learns to move forward. To me, this feels less like a literal explanation and more like a way for Mike and the audience to cope with the loss. I personally don't believe Eleven survived. Carly was already dead long before Eleven ever reached the gateway or entered the abyss. Because of that, I firmly believe Eleven died within the story itself. Her idea of paradise was never some distant, peaceful place. It was always with the people she loved. That's the emotional core of Stranger Things. Eleven spent her entire life being abused and controlled until she found Hopper, Mike, and her friends, the first people who truly made her feel accepted. From that perspective, the timeline simply doesn't make sense. During the epilogue, we learn where everyone ends up. Hopper and Joyce get engaged and prepare to move away so Hopper can accept a new position. Will leaves Hawkins to find a place where he can truly be himself. Mike becomes a writer. Dustin continues learning while still embracing adventure. Lucas and Max end up together. Steve becomes a baseball coach. Jonathan continues making films. Robin works at a radio station. And Nancy drops out of Emerson to work at the Hawkins Herald. Despite their separate paths, they promise to meet once a month, emphasizing that their friendship remains irreplaceable. We also see the next generation, Holly and her friends, now playing Dungeons & Dragons in the basement. This moment symbolizes the passing of the torch, as Mike and the original group finally put their D&D binders away for good. As a finale, I found myself liking certain elements while being disappointed by others. The episode felt choppy, the CGI was inconsistent, and both Vecna and the Mind Flayer felt far less threatening than they had been throughout the series. Considering the Mind Flayer was the origin of everything, the force that corrupted Henry, its defeat felt far too easy. With so much runtime left after its destruction, I expected more. Season 4 handled Vecna far better. Even his brief appearance in Season 5 Volume 1 was more effective than the finale. There simply wasn't enough emotion, and it felt like 11 had the upper hand from the very beginning, despite the battle taking place in the Mind Flayer's domain. Given Vecna's connection to the Mind Flayer, he should have been more powerful than ever. The handling of character deaths was frustrating. 11's fate being left ambiguous felt like a weak choice. Carly's death carried little emotional impact, and Steve's fake-out death, saved at the last second by Jonathan, felt unnecessary. Altogether, it felt like there was too much story left to resolve with only 2 hours remaining. Will's powers and Holly's storyline ultimately didn't amount to much. Will never even confronts Vecna face-to-face in the finale. While their telepathic connection suggests Will may be mentally stronger, it lacked emotional payoff. Despite the world being at stake, there never was a genuine sense of danger. The final 45 minutes, set 18 months later, dragged heavily and leaned into familiar 1980s movie cliches. This section also exposed weaker performances from some cast members. Finn Wolfhard, in particular, struggled emotionally in key scenes with 11, highlighting how much stronger the show felt when the characters were younger. That said, there were moments I truly loved. The emotional bond between Hopper and 11 was strong, and Henry's descent into the cave and the Mind Flayer's reveal in the abyss genuinely excited me. Unfortunately, the payoff didn't live up to that setup. Overall, the show ended okay. Season 4 remains the strongest season by far, and if the gap between seasons hadn't been so long, the finale might have captured that same level of darkness and horror. Henry, Vecna, and the Mind Flayer once felt terrifying, but in this final season, the stakes never truly landed. Stranger Things will still be remembered fondly. The finale didn't ruin the series, it just didn't have enough time to fully execute the ending the story deserved. The Abyss, the Mind Flayer's return, and the final battle between 11 and Vecna needed an entire volume, not a rushed 20-minute showdown. Cutting the lengthy epilogue might have made all the difference. Writing endings is never easy. While imperfect, the conclusion to Stranger Things was simply fine. That's the Stranger Things Season 5 finale ending explained. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Check out the playlist for more Season 5 videos, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.